All right, how's it going, Vibe Tribe? My name is Parker. I'll be your guide today as I deliver you to your daily dose of vitamin V. This video looks like it's U.S. Marines in the Vietnam War, based on the title, by Simple History. They also have a video about the Vietcong soldiers, which is kind of the other side of the war. So I will check out both of those in this video, actually, just to kind of get both sides of the perspective and see the full story. If you are interested in me watching anything else, go ahead and go ahead and comment. I'll probably react to it. If you like the video, go ahead and like it. That way we can get it spread to more people, spread our good vibes further across the world, and feel free to check out the Discord. It is fully free to join, and the link will be in the description under all my videos. We got a lot of room in there. We can all hang out. We can keep talking about topics after the video if you feel like you didn't get enough. So, all right, well, that's enough rambling for me. Let's hop into the video.
Infantry Units, U.S. Marine, the Vietnam War. The first American ground forces deployed against the Vietcong and the NVA were the U.S. Marines, who came ashore at Da Nang on the coast of South Vietnam on March 8, 1965. The following 6 years of warfare would test the Marines' endurance to the limit. The Marine Corps was self-contained with its own artillery, helicopters, and aircraft, with the infantry as the focus of the Marine operations. Marine recruits would undergo training as riflemen. They would go through a rigorous 13-week Marine boot camp at Paris Island or San Diego. Grueling marches, press-ups, and runs were frequent, with instructors.
So they said 13 weeks. So was that 4 months? 4 months and a week? Or 3 months. Wow. Math. Yeah, a 3-month training program. I feel like that's more than I thought, honestly, for Vietnam, because I know a big criticism that America gets when people are talking about history in the Vietnam War is that, oh, they sent all these militia people that weren't trained at all, and they didn't know anything about anything, right? That's like a big criticism, because I know that a lot of the people in Vietnam were young. I don't know the exact age, but if I had to guess, 18 to like 22 or 23. I know they were really young dudes, so they were inexperienced, but based on how people talk about this part of history, I always thought that they didn't get that much training. I didn't even think they got 3 months. I know 3 months isn't like outstanding training. I'm not saying that like 3 months is, plenty, but it's still more than I thought they got. So it's kind of interesting. If you guys know, just like sort of random facts about how long soldiers got trained for specific parts, because I'm sure you can't just say, obviously there's a lot that went into Vietnam. Wars are complicated. There's no black and white easy answers to anything. But if you know how long it took for specific people to train for specific parts, specific jobs, or roles in the war, like how long a gunner pilot in a helicopter had to train, how long a pilot had to train to fly a helicopter, etc. If you know random things like that, go ahead and let me know, because that's I'm interested in that. I'm curious.
Aggressively yelling orders. Successful recruits would then go into infantry training with shooting and specialist skills training. The average Marine infantryman sent to Vietnam was often no older than 18 to 20 years old. Recruits came from all
To 22, 23. So yeah, I mean, that's honestly, take a look at me, right? You may think, oh, this kid looks so young, this kid's so this, that, or whatever. I'm 19 right now, so to help you get perspective on this video, imagine me going to Vietnam and fighting people in a war. That'll give you a perfect perspective between 18 and 20. I'm right there in the middle. So if you were ready to say bye to me, for me to go to Vietnam, then that's the perspective you can have on this situation, I guess.
over the United States, and the Marines attracted many African Americans who found the armed forces a better employment opportunity and a place of equal treatment at a time when civil rights were a contested issue in the U.S. The Marines were deployed in the north sector of South Vietnam.
Yeah, I've heard that about the military. I'm not sure. I mean, there's always those cases where it's not true, but I've heard that a lot of people of color or people that would normally get discriminated against in unfortunately get discriminated against in the American public or something like that. I've heard that they don't really have as much trouble in the military because everybody in the military is here to do a job, right? They're here and they just don't discriminate against you no matter what you are, which is great. I've heard a story about a small town Texas soldier that went into the military, and he was super conservative. He had a lot of views kind of against gays, this, that, and the other. He wasn't the most progressive person. But then he went into the military and he saw that these are just people. These are just people that are trying to do the same thing as me. Why am I better than them? They seem like they think they know what's going on. They seem like they're doing the right thing. So why am I having problems with the way that they are? And then he changed from that and got into a better place in his mind when it came to how he saw other people, which is really interesting. In a hardcore environment like the military, you would think that discrimination is at a higher level, but I guess because everything is so professional and kept to a good tone, they're able to handle it better, which is really, really important if you ask me.
DMZ, where the US-backed South was separated from the communist North. The challenging terrain in which they operated consisted of a coastal plain and further inland the jungle mountains. When a Marine entered the villages and rice paddies of the plain, he was surrounded by a population with a culture and language that he did not understand. Vietcong guerrillas were also hidden amongst the civilians and impossible to identify. In the highlands, Marines had to seek out the enemy amongst misty ridges and ravines, cutting through the jungle with a machete while dealing with swarming insects and humidity.
Yeah. Imagine being as old as me, 19, no experience, probably besides living exactly where you grew up. Like, I've only lived in 2 different places, Illinois and Tennessee, flat grounds and rolling hills. Those are the 2 landscapes I've ever known. The flat plains and cornfield-ass Illinois compared to just hills, 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 some mountains of Tennessee, right? Imagine going from those landscapes to a thick-ass jungle, and you're just not ready for it at all. You've never experienced the jungle because you're from, I don't know, Chicago, right? So I can see why all of Vietnam was such a struggle for us. Like, no one in America is anywhere used to the way that things are in Vietnam. So, in case you're wondering what I'm looking at, say hi to Salem. Alright, I gotta continue making the video. I'm gonna put you down. Anyway, stop rambling.
Even on routine patrols in areas under the control of South Vietnamese, Marines could expect mines and booby traps set up by the Viet Cong or sniper fire. The Marines were at first adapting to the difficult conditions with good morale. They mounted counterinsurgency efforts in the villages, setting up small squads in friendly hamlets alongside local militia to keep out the Viet Cong. The main function of the Marines, however, was to seek out and destroy the Viet Cong guerrillas and the NVA soldiers, primarily in the highlands. U.S. commanders believed in the tactic of combining helicopters and utilizing the maximum use of firepower available to the American forces. The firepower was provided by setting up fire bases in advanced positions from which artillery could support the infantry. Helicopters would insert recon teams of 6 to 8 Marines into hostile territory to track the enemy, or fairly large units into jungle landing zones. Marines would carry 36 kilograms or 80 pounds of kit, including the M16 rifle, grenades, ammunition, canteens, entrenching tool, machete, first aid kit, and flak jacket. Casualty
80 pounds. Damn. 80 pounds is a lot. I was a carpet cleaner for a little over a year, and I don't know if y'all have ever seen a buffer machine. The big circle machines that people clean like stool floors with, and they lift it and they like fly side to side. If you've ever seen one of those weigh about 80 pounds, and I had to pick one of those up and kind of carry it with me everywhere I went when I was cleaning at my job. And I would always be complaining about how heavy that thing was, and I didn't even have to carry it that far. So I can't even imagine carrying 80 pounds on you all day as you're going through this buggy, thick, hot jungle and 80 pounds of probably very warm equipment too to be wearing in that hot setting. Man, Vietnam must have been straight hell for anyone who went there. I mean, I'm sure it was even worse for the people who lived there, so we can't really say much, but still, must have been hell. I'm just saying.
Casualties were sustained not only from firefights with the enemy, but also falls, snake bites, and heat stroke. The availability of helicopters to evacuate the wounded saved many lives. The Marines were finding themselves more and more on the defense as their fire bases south of the DMZ came under attack from the NVA forces. On January 21st, 1968, NVA artillery and mortar fire fell on the Marine base of Khe Sanh. The Marines' ammo dump had exploded, destroying their supplies. It was a start to a siege that would last 77 days. The base was defended by 6,000 men, mainly from the 26th Marine Regiment, with the NVA force surrounding them at 40,000 strong. The Marines had difficulties keeping the garrison supplied via air as the airstrip was exposed to enemy mortars and AA guns. But they held on to Khe Sanh until a relief column broke through. The Communists launched the Tet Offensive in an attempt to seize control of the cities in South Vietnam. The Marines played an important role in taking back control of the city of Hue from the NVA, who had captured it for 25 days. Fighting from house to house, the Marines had lost almost 1,000 men who were either killed or wounded. Many Marines had been pushed to their limit and morale was dropping. As casualties increased, Marines focused on surviving their 13-month tour of duty when victory looked increasingly impossible. The Marines withdrew from Vietnam in 1971, leaving the Army to fight the war alone. Subscribe to see more history videos.
Okay. Well,
Get simple
it's right
history
here,
of the Vietnam War.
go ahead and hop right into the second part of
Grammarly
this.
does more than catch it.
Go ahead and hop into the second part of this. We're going to go ahead and see the other side now. The equipment, strategies, overall of the Vietcong soldiers. So I'm interested in that. Let's go ahead and see what he has to say about the Vietcong.
Vietcong guerrilla, the Vietnam War. The Vietcong were the evolution of the communist Viet Minh guerrillas during the First Indochina War against the French. The country split into the communist-ruled North and the U.S.-backed South under Ngo Dien Diem. As it became apparent, Diem's government was unpopular. The North Vietnamese government sent former Viet Minh guerrillas to the south along the Ho Chi Minh Trail to aid the struggle for a unified communist Vietnam. These cadres made contact with villagers and talked to the locals in order to gain support for their cause. In 1960, the National Liberation Front, set up as a part of the political arm of the guerrilla movement, calling for the southern Vietnamese to overthrow the camouflage colonial regime of the American imperialists. These cadres recruited guerrilla soldiers from support of local people they found, or in some cases, recruited at gunpoint. The main full-time guerrillas were trained at bases, ready for full-scale combat, while the part-time guerrillas would remain in the villages as militia with basic training. They would provide intel and set booby traps around the
Okay, so they got their most physically adept, physically promising soldiers, kind of gathered them all together, and then kept the less, capable but still worthy soldiers and kept them where they were so that they have this concentration force that they can move where they need to, and then a spread out smaller force of just guerrillas in every village. That makes sense. And it's smart, especially keeping people where they're from, because people really underestimate home field advantage. If you've grown up in a certain part of the jungle for your entire life, and you're going against Americans coming from America who have never even been in a jungle period, then yeah, you're gonna be able to outmaneuver them 10 times out of 10. Because when it comes to natural landscapes like that, if you've never been to that specific landscape, everything is new. Every tree looks the same, every vine, every leaf, every turn. It's all just confusing. It's all just mess. But if you've been there, then you actually know the land itself. You know how to get from one part of the country to the other just based off jungle. That's a lot more than the Americans could say. So it made sense that you kept people spread out, kept them where they're from, gave them that advantage. And I think that was probably a big part of why we had so much trouble in Vietnam. People, they just knew everything about their areas.
Perimeter. The Viet Cong guerrilla wore a floppy jungle hat, rubber sandals, and a tunic. Some of the weapons they used were the Soviet SKS carbine semi-automatic rifle, the Soviet 7.62mm AK-47 assault rifle, or its Chinese copy, the Type 56 assault rifle, RPGs, grenades, landmines, and other booby traps. The Viet Cong would raid villages and eliminate government-appointed village leaders.
I feel like they also had a pretty wide variety when it came to their weapons. I didn't realize they had so many different things that they were using. You looked at the American soldiers, they mainly, for weapons, they only had an M16. I believe they had a grenade, a machete, and then I guess if you get desperate enough, they had a shovel too, right? So, but they only have one gun. They had grenades and they had a machete. These guys had two different types of mines that they like to use, an RPG, two different guns they could choose from. I'm sure they couldn't choose. Yeah, I'm sure supplies were divvied, not chosen. But, I mean, when it comes to the AK-47 versus M16, I think there are a lot of benefits to the M16. You know, it's much easier to control than an AK. But, of course, there's a reason AKs have been around for so long. They're still very effective on their own. So, conclusion to that, I honestly, the Viet Cong were a lot more well equipped than I knew about personally. They had more options to them than I thought, but you know, I guess their ally Russia really hooked them up. So that's interesting.
They would ambush the enemy on roads and launch attacks on U.S. military advisors. When the United States sent in its armed forces to prevent the fall of South Vietnam to communist forces, it found the Viet Cong to be a difficult foe. The Viet Cong carried out ambushes and laid booby traps while engaging in close combat firefights to prevent the use of air support by U.S. forces.
If you know anything about Vietnam when it comes to the weapons that they used, because I know he gave us some examples, but did American infantry not have any sort of long range, any longer than the M16? It'd be kind of weird if they didn't have, you know, like some sort of semi-auto rifle, some sort of DMR type of thing, or snipers at all. If they had specific DMRs or sniper rifles, let me know what those are called, because it's really interesting. I like learning about guns and the different models. So if you know different gun models that were used in Vietnam, maybe past the M16 on the American side, let me know. And yeah.
The Viet Cong guerrilla, meanwhile, in addition to combat with U.S. ground forces, had to endure bombing, napalm, and heavy armed enemy aircraft and helicopters. They also had to endure poisonous reptiles and malaria, as well as starvation. Many Viet Cong would hide from the enemy in tunnels which contained kitchens.
Okay, this is actually my favorite part to learn about when it comes to Vietnam. I've learned a lot about the tunnel rats and the tunnel systems and how in-depth they were and how complex they were. And it's crazy. They had entire military establishments underground through just basic tunnels that they dug. And that's wild. I listened to a documentary about the tunnels themselves, and it's just really interesting. It's goddamn creative, I'll give them that, to even think, well, if they have really good firepower in planes, then let's just go underground. If they have the air, we'll take the ground, and we'll see how it goes.
A hospital and sleeping quarters. During the Tet Offensive in 1968, the Viet Cong took advantage of the fact that South Vietnamese soldiers would be on leave, concealing themselves among civilians returning home. They occupied cities across South Vietnam, even occupying the capital, Saigon, and demoralizing American morale to continue in the war.
Subscribe to see more history videos.
Yeah, okay, I really liked that, those two sets of videos. They gave me a lot of insights that I didn't have before on Vietnam. So if you guys have anything you want me to watch, go ahead and request it. If you want to join a Discord server of like-minded individuals and get into our community, It'll be in the description under all my videos. Completely free to join, and we can keep the conversation going even after I post, after I'm done with the video. So, every now and then after I post the video, I'm gonna try to hop into the Discord for the next little bit after that video goes out. And if you guys see the video, watch the video, hop into the Discord. We can keep talking about it, and just get a little bit more personalized interaction. If that sounds interesting, just hop into the Discord. Like I said, it's in the description. All right, well, that's it for me. I will see you all in the next video. I love you, and stay beautiful.